It all began that Tuesday morning, the moment I found a cream-colored envelope in my mailbox. I didn't need to see the sender's name to know it was from Alyssa. Her signature handwriting was unmistakable, perfect, cold, each letter cut with the sharpness of a blade. My name was written in black ink. Ms. Lucy Hanson. Not just Lucy, not even Big Sister. She'd chosen a distant, formal salutation like addressing a long-lost relative. As I stared at that envelope over my morning coffee, I felt the heat of the day begin to ebb away. I should have thrown it out. I should have recognized the expensive paper, the gold-embossed return address. And yet, I still wanted to believe that somewhere beneath Alyssa's icy exterior, the warm little sister I once knew was still alive. The same sweet girl who used to crawl into my bed, frightened by nightmares. When I broke the seal, my cramped kitchen felt even smaller. The morning sunlight streaming through my modest apartment window suddenly seemed bleak. It has been 3 years since I lost my husband, Victor, and was left with nothing but debt. This place had become my refuge, a tiny sanctuary built from the wreckage of my life. Inside was not a wedding invitation, nor an announcement. It was a bill. Wedding planning fees, honeymoon expenses, total $80,000. 3 weeks in Tuscany, payment due in 30 days. In Alyssa's beautiful handwriting, there was a note: considering all you've done for me, you should be honored to contribute. This is the bare minimum of your duty. I read it over and over, but the meaning never changed. My only sister was demanding I pay for a wedding I wasn't even invited to. She treated the honeymoon as if it were some kind of privilege, as something I should pay for, but never be allowed to attend. For 38 years, I had been the older sister after our parents died. I was her surrogate mother. And this was my reward. No call, no invitation, no conversation. Just a cold, merciless invoice. The last time I'd seen her was 18 months ago, at her lavish apartment's Christmas dinner. Her smile at the door was practiced, her eyes never quite meeting mine. All night, she showered me with backhanded criticism about my choices, my situation. Her fiancé, Ben, barely acknowledged me when he spoke. It was only in that polite, condescending tone. I left early, pleading a headache. Alyssa said nothing. Now, kneeling on my kitchen floor, picking up shards of a broken coffee cup, I understood. I was no longer her sister. I was just a wallet she could shake when she wanted. The realization should have shattered me. But instead, something cold and calculating took root in my chest. Slowly, I stood up, my knees, worn from carrying everyone else's expectations for 35 years, protested. The invoice fluttered to the floor, left among the coffee stains and fragments of porcelain. On my way to the bedroom, I caught my reflection in the hallway mirror. It was just me, unadorned, unfiltered. Except for my eyes. There was something there I hadn't seen in years. Anger. I opened my laptop and started to type. It wasn't a check. It wasn't a plea to be included. It was something else entirely. My fingers struck the keyboard with purpose. I looked up wedding venues in Westchester County, cross-referenced them with social media posts I could access through mutual friends. I confirmed the astronomical rates for luxury resorts and private villas in Tuscany. By evening, I'd uncovered every detail of my sister's dream wedding and honeymoon. The vendors, the costs, all of it. I opened the bottle of good wine I'd been saving, not the cheap stuff I usually bought, but something special. Today was special enough. Leaving the invoice on the floor, I sat at the kitchen table and started a list of phone numbers. First was Alyssa's wedding planner, Kelly Simpson. Then the Tuscan resort, the caterers, the florist, the photographer. If I was only seen as a convenient ATM expected to pay, then so be it. Alyssa wanted my contribution to her wedding? Fine. I'd contribute, just not in the way she expected. I dialed the first number. After the third ring, a woman answered. Simpson Wedding Planning, Kelly speaking. Hello, I replied, my voice granite calm. I'm calling about Ben Jackson's wedding. This is Lucy, Alyssa's sister. Oh, Lucy, I'm so glad to finally speak with you. Alyssa mentioned you might be covering the wedding costs. We're putting together a truly beautiful event. I'm sure you are, I replied, expressionless. I'd like to discuss the details. Can we meet tomorrow? How does 2 p.m. sound? That will be fine. I ended the call and reached for my wine glass. Tomorrow, I'd start teaching my sister about consequences, about respect, about what happens when you treat your sister like a cash machine. But tonight, I planned. The invoice was still lying on the floor, looking up at me. I left it there and went to bed. For the first time in months, I slept soundly. When I walked into Kelly Simpson's office building in White Plains, the morning air was crisp. I'd chosen my outfit with care, a navy dress that, 3 years ago, cost me 2 weeks of groceries, and my late mother's pearl necklace. I didn't want to flaunt money. I wanted the quiet elegance of someone who could sign an $80,000 check without blinking. The elevator ride to the fifth floor felt like the ascent to a battlefield. My reflection in the polished doors looked like a woman who'd shed the weight of 20 years in a single night. Kelly's office was exactly what I expected: cream-colored walls, gold accents, furniture worth more than most people's cars. She greeted me with the warm, practiced charm of someone whose livelihood was managing other people's dreams and anxieties. "Lucy, please have a seat. Coffee?" "Water, please." I took a seat across from her at the glass desk. "Your sister has wonderful taste. Riverside Manor is perfect for an October wedding. Hand-blown glass centerpieces, imported Italian linens, everything is exquisite." "What's the date?" I asked. "When is the wedding?" "October 15th, just 3 weeks away. Alyssa mentioned you might be traveling and unable to attend." Her tone was carefully neutral, but there was a question hanging at the end. "So, it seems," I replied. The silence spoke volumes. "What about the honeymoon plans?" "Oh, it's going to be absolutely magical. 3 weeks at Villa Alante in Tuscany. It's a private resort, very exclusive. They're leaving the day after the wedding." Kelly's eyes sparkled with the indirect excitement of a seasoned wedding planner. "The invoice includes the upgraded villa with the infinity pool and private chef, I believe." "The invoice?" I set down my cup, slowly and deliberately. "There seems to be some confusion." "Confusion?" "I never agreed to pay for my sister's wedding or honeymoon. In fact, I haven't even been invited." My words were calm and measured, but I watched as the realization rippled across Kelly's face, silent as a stone dropped into a still pond. "Oh," she blinked rapidly, her professional mask slipping. "But Alyssa told me, she said you wanted to contribute, that you were sorry you couldn't attend, that you hoped to make up for your absence by covering a significant portion of the costs." I almost laughed, but instead, I leaned forward, dropping my voice to a conspiratorial whisper. "Really? That's interesting, Kelly. When someone hires you for your services, they have to sign a contract, right?" "Yes, of course." "So, who signed the contract for this wedding?" Under her carefully applied makeup, Kelly paled. "Alyssa and Ben did. But she assured me you would be covering certain items altogether, about $80,000. I opened my wallet and took out the neatly folded invoice. This is what arrived yesterday. No phone call, no discussion. Just an invoice with a lovely note telling me I should feel lucky to be allowed to donate. A tense silence hung between us. Kelly looked at the invoice, then at me, and then back to the paper. I could almost see the calculations running through her mind, her deposit, payments to vendors, her own fees, all suddenly at risk. "You had no idea, did you?" Alyssa made it sound like this was all agreed on. "Did you receive any payment from her in advance?" "Small deposit, $5,000. The rest was supposed to be paid by you this week, with the final balance on the wedding day." I nodded slowly, taking it all in. "And if these payments don't go through?" Kelly reached for her coffee cup with trembling hands. "Without payment, we can't provide any services, any of them. The vendors require payment before or on the day of the event venue, catering, flowers, photography, everything." Her voice had fallen below a whisper. "If the money doesn't come in, there will be no wedding." I sank back in my chair, letting the reality settle in. Alyssa had planned her dream wedding on the assumption she could guilt me into paying. She was counting on my sense of obligation as a sister, my longing to be included in her life. She'd gambled on my old habit of saying yes when I should have said no. She'd badly miscalculated. "Kelly," I said gently, almost in a sisterly tone, "you seem like a wonderful person. I'm sure you work very hard for your clients. This isn't your fault. My sister has put you in a difficult position. What should I do? Her voice sounded like a prayer. Well, it depends. How much time do you need to prepare alternatives? If, for a wedding of this scale, the funding falls through just 3 weeks beforehand? Kelly shook her head. It's almost impossible. Even the deposit, most vendors don't offer refunds for last-minute cancellations. And if the client doesn't pay, Alyssa and Ben are still legally responsible for the contract. Family drama or not, the legal obligation is theirs. The implications hung heavy between us. I stood and smoothed my dress. Kelly, I have a favor to ask. If my sister calls you, and she probably will within a day or two, please tell her exactly what you told me, that without my payment, the wedding cannot go forward. But, Lucy. And please give her my phone number. Tell her if she wants to discuss this further, she needs to call me directly, not send invoices, not make assumptions. Kelly nodded, silent and pale. At the door, I paused and added, you have nothing to feel guilty about. You aren't responsible for my sister's choices or the consequences. You're a businesswoman who deserves to be paid for her work, just not by me. I left her there, staring at the invoice on her desk as if it were evidence in a trial. The elevator ride down felt different from the ride up. I felt lighter, as if I'd left my sister's expectations and all that invisible weight behind in that office. Outside, the October air carried the scent of dry leaves and approaching winter. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I found a number I hadn't used in months. Gina Smith had been our neighbor when Alyssa and I lived with our parents. Gina's daughter, Jessica, was Alyssa's best friend all the way through high school, until Alyssa decided Jessica's family background wasn't glamorous enough for her new social ambitions. Gina answered on the second ring. Lucy, it's been so long. How are you? I'm good, Gina. Honestly, better than I've been in years. I actually have a favor to ask. Do you still have Jessica's number? I'd really like to get in touch with her again. Absolutely, she'd be thrilled to hear from you. Every time I talk to her, she asks about you. Did you know? She's a wedding photographer now, runs her own business. A wedding photographer? The pieces of my plan began to click into place, like the last pieces of a puzzle snapping together. I smiled. That's perfect, Gina. Really perfect. After hanging up, I walked slowly back to my car. My mind was already moving to the next step. Alyssa had wanted her dream wedding, and she was about to learn just how quickly a dream could turn into a nightmare. A message came in from an unknown number. This is Kelly Simpson. Thank you for your understanding today. You're right, I'm just doing my job. I hope things work out for your family. I replied immediately. They will, just maybe not the way my sister expects. Driving home, I realized I was humming a tune I hadn't heard from myself in months. The late afternoon sun slanted through the windshield, and for the first time since Victor's death, I felt like I was moving toward something, not running from it. Jessica looked almost unchanged, even though it had been 15 years since I last saw her. We agreed to meet at a little cafe in Terrytown, halfway between our lives. Ms. Hanson, she called, arms wide as she approached the corner table. You look amazing. I stood and hugged her, breathing in a faint vanilla perfume that instantly reminded me of afternoons when she and Alyssa would sprawl on the living room floor, whispering secrets while painting their nails. Back when my sister could still laugh freely before love became something to be rationed and earned. Call me Lucy. We're adults now, after all, I said, motioning to the seat across from me. Thank you for meeting me on such short notice. My mom said you wanted to talk about photography work. Honestly, I'm intrigued. It's been a long time since we talked. How much did she tell you about the situation between me and Alyssa? Not much, except that you two haven't been close lately. I'm sorry, Lucy. I remember how inseparable you were as kids. Do you remember why you and Alyssa stopped being friends? Jessica gave a laugh, but there was no humor in it. In high school, she decided I wasn't sophisticated enough for her new crowd. She told me my family was holding her back. I traced the rim of my coffee cup. It hurt at the time, but honestly, looking back, I think I dodged a bullet. What do you mean? I followed her on social media for years. I saw how she used people as stepping stones. Remember Ryan Gale from our graduating class? She dated him for 2 years, made him pay for everything, then dumped him for the quarterback a week before prom after he proposed. Jessica's eyes met mine. Some people never stop using others. The waitress brought our coffee, and while she set it down, I deeply looked at Jessica's face, grown beautiful, quietly confident, but successful without ever becoming harsh or losing her kindness. She had become the kind of person I always hoped Alyssa might turn out to be. Tell me about your photography business, I said. It's going well. I specialize in weddings and family portraits. There's something magical about capturing people's happiest moments. But lately, Jessica paused, stirring sugar into her coffee. I've been getting some interesting requests. Divorce papers, evidence for lawsuits, documentation for legal proceedings. Her smile sharpened. Turns out my knack for capturing candid moments is useful for more than just wedding bliss. A familiar sense of calm settled over me. Everything was falling into place. How do you feel about shooting unwelcome events? Jessica raised her eyebrows. You mean like crashing a party? More like documenting from a distance. For someone with a legitimate interest in what's happening but who isn't allowed to be there. We looked at each other across the small table, understanding passing between us like a secret. Jessica leaned in, lowering her voice to a whisper. Lucy, what exactly are you planning? I took out my phone and showed her a photo of Alyssa's invoice. As Jessica read, her expression hardened, jaw clenching at each line. $80,000 for a wedding you're not even invited to. Her voice was tight with the same outrage I'd felt. That's brutal, Lucy. It's antisocial behavior. I want you to photograph her wedding. From outside, of course, since you won't be invited. Riverside Manor has huge grounds and there are public areas where a photographer can shoot without ever setting foot inside. I leaned in to match her whisper. I want a record of every moment, every guest, every detail of this $80,000 event I'm expected to pay for but not attend. Jessica was quiet for a moment, drumming her fingers on the table. When she finally spoke, her voice was thoughtful. It's not illegal. The property lines are clear, and there are several public access points with clear views of the garden where most of the ceremony takes place. I've shot there before. Lucy, I've seen too many good people trampled by the selfish. If I can help someone protect themselves or uncover the truth, I'm in. She took out her phone and scrolled through her calendar. October 15th, right? Yes. But Jessica, there's more. I told her about my conversation with Kelly Simpson, the unpaid invoice, and the way Alyssa's perfect day was built on sand, ready to collapse. Jessica listened without interruption, her eyes widening with each new detail. So if you don't pay, there's no wedding, at least, not the wedding she planned. Right. The question is whether she'll scramble to pull off something smaller or have to postpone entirely. Either way, you want it documented. Proof of her choices and their consequences. Not for revenge. Or not just for revenge, for my own peace of mind, too. People need to understand that actions have consequences, even people who think they're above it all. Jessica nodded slowly. Understood. Honestly, given what she's put you through, and is still putting you through, you're being incredibly restrained. And there's one more thing, I continued. After the wedding, or instead of the wedding, something is going to happen. There will be phone calls, visits, manipulations, attempts to make me feel guilty. I need you to teach me how to properly document everything: audio, video, written records. I want to be ready for whatever she tries when she doesn't get her way. You're building your evidence. I'm protecting myself. There's a difference. I met her eyes. For 30 years, I put my sister's feelings above my own dignity. That's over. But I want to be smart, not just angry. Jessica reached across the table and covered my hand with hers. Lucy, there's something you should know. Back in high school, she told everyone my dad was just a mechanic and my mom was a cleaning lady, that my family wasn't good enough for her. A sharp ache tightened in my chest. Jessica, I'm so sorry. Don't be. You know why? When I graduated as valedictorian and got a full scholarship to art school, you cheered louder than my parents. You brought me flowers and told me how proud you were. Her eyes brimmed with tears. Alyssa never acknowledged any of that. The memory rushed back 17-year-old Jessica in her cap and gown, glowing with pride, while Alyssa sulked in the car, complaining the ceremony was boring and that she was missing a pool party. I'd been so proud of Jessica and so disappointed in my little sister. I remember everything about that day. You were the first adult who ever told me I was worthy just for being myself, not for what I could do for anyone else, but just for being and doing my best. Jessica squeezed my hand. So yes, Lucy, I'll help you document your sister's wedding. And I'll teach you everything I know about protecting yourself from people who think love is transactional. We spent another hour going over logistics, camera angles, legal boundaries, and contingency plans for every scenario. Jessica showed me apps for recording calls, tips for documenting every exchange, and how to create an unshakable record of events. As we got ready to leave, she handed me a business card, writing a number on the back. This is my personal cell, Lucy. If things go south after the wedding and Alyssa tries to corner or manipulate you, call me anytime, day or night. I tucked the card deep into my wallet, right next to the photo of Alyssa I'd carried for 20 years, the one from high school graduation, the last time she'd truly smiled. Jessica, I said as we stood, have you ever regretted losing your friendship with Alyssa? Jessica thought for a moment, then shook her head. I regret who she's become, but I don't regret losing our friendship. My life now is better than a lifetime of being used. As I walked to my car, I felt lighter than I had in years, not just because I'd found an ally, but because I was remembering what it felt like to be valued for who I was, not what I could offer. Jessica made it clear to me who I was becoming. 3 days after meeting with Kelly Simpson, I got a call not from Alyssa but from Ben. Alyssa still needed to learn that I was a human being, not an ATM. His message was tense, barely controlled panic. Lucy, it's Ben. We need to talk. There seems to be some confusion about the wedding payments. Please call me back as soon as possible. I didn't call back. Instead, I drank tea in my kitchen and replayed his message 3 times. Each time, another layer of desperation surfaced beneath his usually authoritative tone. I'd always gotten the sense Ben Jackson was the type to solve problems with money or by delegating them to someone else. Now, he was beginning to realize that not all problems can be solved that way. That night, there was a second message. Lucy, this is getting ridiculous. Alyssa is losing her mind. The wedding is in 2 weeks. Please call me and fix this. On the 4th day, Alyssa herself finally reached out. Lucy, I don't know what you're thinking, but enough is enough. The wedding planner says you're breaking your promise. This is my once-in-a-lifetime day. You need to put aside petty grievances when something this important is on the line. I played her message twice, marveling at how she managed to act like the victim while trying to extort $80,000 from the sister she'd banned from her own wedding. She didn't mention the cruelty of the invoice or the fact she'd never actually asked me to contribute, just outraged that I wasn't following her narrative. That afternoon, Jessica called me. Lucy, how are you holding up? I was at the venue this morning just prepping for Saturday, but I overheard some staff talking. Apparently, some of the vendors are demanding payment up front instead of waiting until the day of the event. That's good, I said, surprised by the edge in my own voice. Let her panic. She should know what it feels like when other people's cooperation isn't guaranteed. There's more, Jessica said, excitement in her voice. Yesterday, while shooting engagement photos at the park near your old house, I ran into Sandra Ford. Do you remember her? She lived 3 doors down from you? Of course I remembered Sandra, widowed young, a kind woman who'd raised 2 sons alone. After Victor's death, she and I would talk over morning coffee about the hardships of being single mothers. She asked about you, Jessica went on. When I told her about Alyssa's wedding drama, she said she's actually working at the catering company supposed to handle the reception. My heart skipped. What did she say? According to her, Alyssa's been a nightmare yelling at waitstaff during tastings, making last-minute menu changes, treating everyone like servants. But here's the kicker. The catering bill is $12,000, and they haven't received a cent. They're one of the vendors still waiting on your payment. According to Sandra, that's exactly what Alyssa told them, that her sister was covering the major costs, and everything would be settled on the day. Jessica paused. Sandra asked me to pass along a message. What is it? She said, if you decide not to pay, she'll make sure the kitchen staff know exactly why there's no dinner at the reception. And given how Alyssa's treated the employees, your next birthday party's catering will probably be free. I laughed, truly laughed for the first time in weeks. The thought of Alyssa's carefully curated guest list, discovering that the lavish dinner was canceled because the uninvited sister refused to be shaken down, was simply too perfect. Jessica, do you think I'm being too harsh? The question surprised me as soon as it left my mouth. After 30 years of excusing Alyssa's behavior, some part of me still whispered that I was the villain. Lucy, do you know what being cruel would actually look like? Showing up uninvited to the wedding and causing a scene. Posting the invoice on social media for everyone to see. Calling up friends and exposing what Alyssa is really like. Jessica's voice was firm. You haven't done any of that. You're simply refusing to be extorted. Setting boundaries is not cruelty. That night, I did something I hadn't done in months. I cooked myself a real dinner. Not a sandwich or microwave meal, but something with fresh vegetables, seasoning, and care. I set the table with the good dishes my parents had received as a wedding gift, saved for special occasions that never seemed to come. As I ate, I remembered all the dinners I'd made for Alyssa over the years. The family gatherings I'd hosted, even after giving up my own dreams to work so she could go to college, spending hours in the kitchen. I wondered when I'd stop mattering in my own home, when I'd become invisible, giving comfort and abundance to others and settling for scraps of affection in return. While I was washing dishes, the phone rang. The screen shows Ben, but it was Alyssa's voice I heard when I answered. Lucy, I'm so glad we can finally talk tonight. Good evening, Alyssa. What's going on? What's going on? Alyssa's voice went up an octave. My own sister has clearly lost her mind, and I'm in crisis. The wedding is in 8 days, and you're playing games with the vendors, creating chaos for no reason. I'm not playing games. I simply don't want to pay for a wedding I'm not invited to. The silence was so long, I wondered if she'd hung up. When Alyssa finally spoke, her voice was deathly calm. I didn't invite you because I knew you'd make it about yourself, or find some way to make everyone uncomfortable with your situation living in that tiny apartment, wearing discount store clothes, always talking about money. Ben's family has certain standards, and honestly, I wasn't sure you could fit in. Her words landed like a punch, but what I felt was not pain, just a piercing clarity settling into my chest. I see, I said evenly, so you shut me out of your wedding because you thought I'd embarrass you, but you still expect me to pay for it. This is exactly what I'm talking about, Alyssa said sharply. You twist everything to sound worse than it is. I thought if you contributed financially instead of attending, it would be easier for everyone. Easier for whom, exactly? For everyone. For you, too. You wouldn't have to worry about what to wear or whether you fit in. You could still be part of the day without the stress of actually being there. I closed my eyes and remembered the little girl who used to crawl into my lap whenever she was scared, calling me the kindest big sister in the world. Somewhere along the line, that child had been replaced by a stranger who saw me as nothing but a source of shame and funding. Alyssa, I said gently, do you hear yourself right now? What do you mean? You're saying that you shut me out of the most important day of your life because you don't think I'm worthy of being there, and yet you still want my money. This isn't about money. It's exactly about money. Alyssa, you sent me an $80,000 invoice, not a request, not a conversation, but a bill, with a note saying I should feel lucky to be allowed to donate. Another long silence. When she finally spoke, her voice had dropped back to that small, pleading tone she used as a teenager when she wanted something. I know the invoice was poorly worded. I was stressed, and maybe I didn't express myself well. But you're my sister. This is my wedding. Don't you want to see me happy? I want you to be the kind of person I could be proud of. Someone who treats people with kindness and respect. Someone who values relationships over transactions. I took a deep breath. But that's not who you are right now, is it? That's ridiculous and emotional. That's exactly why I thought it was better if you weren't there. Well, then you can rest easy, because I'm not paying either. Before she could respond, I hung up. My hands were astonishingly steady as I set down the phone. Seconds later, it started ringing again. First was Ben, then Alyssa, then Ben again. I silenced the ringer and watched as call after call lit up the screen. Finally, a text came through: "You're ruining my wedding out of spite. I hope you're happy." I replied slowly, carefully, "I'm not ruining anything. I'm just not paying for it. There's a difference." Her response came instantly: "It's the same thing." And it became clear to Alyssa my refusal to pay for her wedding was indistinguishable from sabotage. Somewhere, the vendors were realizing they weren't going to be paid. The wedding planner was probably scrambling to keep things afloat. The bride was just now understanding how catastrophically wrong her assumptions about other people's compliance had been. And me? I was finally standing in my own space, in my own life, free from the obligation to fund someone else's dreams and free from being excluded from their love. October 15th dawned gray and cold, with a soaking mist that seeped into everything. At 6 a.m., Jessica texted me, "The venue is a mess. Vendor trucks are already pulling out. Do you still want me there?" "Yes, record everything." By 10 a.m., I had 17 missed calls from a range of numbers: Ben, Alyssa, even Kelly Simpson. On the fifth call, I turned off the ringer and spent my morning calmly sorting through financial paperwork and cleaning my apartment. I wanted to have every record of my independence in order, just in case Alyssa decided to escalate things legally. At 11:30, the doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw Alyssa in the hallway wearing pajamas under her coat, her usually flawless hair unwashed and disheveled. Ben stood behind her, looking like a man who'd spent the night negotiating with creditors. I opened the door but didn't move aside to let them in. "Lucy," Alyssa's voice was raw, halfway between a sob and a scream. "We need to talk." "Good morning, Alyssa." Ben. I kept my tone calm and professional. "You both seem upset." Upset? Alyssa's composure, always her greatest weapon, had finally, completely cracked. "My wedding is ruined. This morning, the caterer showed up and said they'd leave unless we paid $12,000 in cash. The florist took all the arrangements back. The photographer says he won't shoot the ceremony until the $8,000 for engagement photos is paid." "That must be incredibly stressful," I said coolly. "What does that have to do with me?" Ben stepped forward, face flushed with anger. "Drop the act, Lucy. You know exactly what this has to do with you. Just because you didn't get an invitation doesn't mean you had to sabotage our wedding." "I didn't sabotage anything. I just chose not to pay for your wedding. Those are two entirely different things. The result is the same," Alyssa screamed. I was almost startled by how ugly her face looked when she wasn't performing perfection. "Do you have any idea what this is costing us? Not just money, but our reputation? Ben's family is already at the hotel. Friends have flown in from 3 states. Everyone's asking what happened, why everything is falling apart. What am I supposed to say?" "The truth is that Alyssa's sister decided to punish her at the last minute by withholding financial support," Ben said icily. "Is that the truth?" I asked. "Because, as far as I can see, the truth is you planned a wedding you couldn't afford, assumed I would pay without even consulting me, and now you're dealing with the consequences of that assumption." Tears spilled from Alyssa's eyes, real tears, not the calculated kind I'd seen all through her adolescence. "Please, Lucy, please. I know I handled this wrong. The invoice was insensitive, but today is my wedding day. Can't we think about all this later?" For a moment, seeing my sister's tear-streaked face, the old sense of responsibility came rushing back. That voice in my head whispered, "Just fix it. Make her happy. Keep the peace." It would be so easy to write a check, to get through this crisis, to go back to the old pattern where her comfort mattered more than my pain. But I remembered the invoice, the casual cruelty of that note, the assumption that I should feel lucky to be disposable socially, as long as I was useful financially. "Alyssa," I asked gently, "what would happen if I wrote a check right now?" Alyssa's face lit up with desperate hope. "It might still work out. We could call the vendors, explain it was a misunderstanding. And then what? After the wedding, after the honeymoon, would you expect me to cover more costs? What would our relationship look like? She blinked, clearly not understanding the question. What do you mean? I mean, would I be invited to your anniversary dinner? Would I be welcome to stay at your house for the holidays? Would you call just to talk, not just when you needed something? I watched her face as she realized what I meant. Or would I just go back to being the embarrassing sister you keep at a distance until the next time you need money? The silence between us was as deep as a chasm. Ben shifted uncomfortably, and I could tell he was finally beginning to understand the deeper dynamics at play. It's not about that, Alyssa faltered. You're my sister. Just as I've been part of your life for the past 30 years, it's only natural for you to be part of ours. I looked at Ben. His discomfort became more obvious by the second. Ben, did you know that in the 3 years Alyssa has lived here, she's never once visited my apartment? Her Christmas cards are addressed not to Lucy, but to MS. Lucy Hanson. Since our father died, she's never once asked about my finances or my mental health. Ben's eyes widened slightly. I could see him reevaluating what other sides of his fiancée's personality he might have missed. And yet, she still expects me to pay for her fairy tale wedding, I continued. $80,000 from a woman living on a widow's pension and Social Security, from someone not even considered worthy of an invitation to the event she's supposed to fund. Lucy, please stop, Alyssa's voice cracked, all trace of polish gone. Just stop. Sweetheart, you're right. I will stop. I'm ending the cycle where your demands are valued more than my dignity. I'm breaking the pattern that says loving you means accepting your contempt. I'm finished paying for the privilege of being treated like a burden. A text from Jessica appeared on my phone. The wedding is officially canceled. The venue staff are notifying the guests. People are asking what happened. I glanced at the message and turned back to my sister. Your wedding's been officially called off. Alyssa's sobbing was raw, almost animalistic. She collapsed against Ben, who wrapped an arm around her with the awkwardness of a man watching something he can't quite understand. This could have been so easily avoided, I continued calmly. With a phone call, a conversation, even a basic measure of courtesy in how you treated me. Instead, you sent a bill with a note thanking me for being exploited. How do I fix this? Alyssa's voice was muffled against Ben's shoulder. I need you to understand something. This is about respect, basic human decency. It means treating your sister as a person, not a resource. I can learn. Can you? Because this isn't new, Alyssa. You've done this for years. The only difference is that this time there are consequences. Ben cleared his throat. Lucy, I think there's been a misunderstanding. There's no misunderstanding, I interrupted. All I have is a sister who thought she could have her cake and eat it too, who believed she could have access to my bank account but keep me out of her life. I stepped back and began to close the door. I hope you both learned something today. If there's ever another wedding, I hope it's based on honesty and respect, not entitlement. Wait, Alyssa broke away from Ben, desperation etched on her face. What if? What if we postponed everything? What if we planned a smaller wedding, something we can actually afford, and this time, you're really invited? With my hand on the door, I hesitated. Why would you do that? Because you're my sister, she said, as if that explained everything. Be honest with me, Alyssa. If I couldn't contribute financially to your life, would you still want me there? The fact that she had to think about it told me all I needed to know. I thought so, I said softly. Goodbye, Alyssa. I hope someday you understand the difference between loving someone and using them. I closed the door, turned the deadbolt, and leaned against it, listening to their voices echoing down the hall. Ben's urgent, low tones, Alyssa's sobs. 10 minutes later, I heard their footsteps fade, then the elevator. Almost immediately, my phone rang. It was Jessica. Lucy, I just saw them leave your building. Are you okay? I'm perfect, I replied and realized I meant it. How did the documentation go? I got everything. The vendors left, the guests were turned away. People panicked in the parking lot. I recorded it all. Jessica hesitated. But there's something else. About an hour ago, I got a call from someone named Gina Smith. You gave her my number? I did. What did she want? She wants to hire me to photograph her parents' 50th wedding anniversary next month. Apparently, she's telling everyone about my work. Jessica's voice was warm and excited. Lucy, I think you may have just changed my life, too. A few days later, I received a final message from Alyssa, a letter this time on expensive stationery in her flawless handwriting. Lucy, I can never forgive you for ruining my wedding. You stole the most important day of my life. Ben's family is questioning everything. Our friends are confused. You were the only person I could turn to. I asked for your help because I loved and trusted you. But you turned your back on me when I needed you most. You'll never hear from me again. You're as good as dead to me. Alyssa. I finished reading the letter and stared at it for several minutes. For 30 years, this kind of rejection had been my worst fear, being cast out by my sister, completely excluded from her life. But now that it happened, what I felt wasn't sadness. It was relief. Spring arrived, and my little apartment filled with new life herbs on the windowsill, new photos on the walls, and most of all, a smile returning to my face. One day I found an envelope in the mailbox. This time it was white, my name neatly printed. The sender was a law firm. Inside was notice of Alyssa and Ben's divorce proceedings. It seemed their relationship had unraveled just as quickly as their wedding after everything fell apart. I read the papers and tucked them in my desk drawer. I wasn't surprised. I'd expected their relationship to falter at the very first sign of real trouble.